So, oftentimes I used to go on the richest people in the world list and just go through the names and learn a bit about each person and see if I can learn how they got rich and so forth. And one person was always near the top of that list, and I never really understood what he did. And slowly over time, I kind of learned more and more about him. And his name was Michael Bloomberg. And I eventually started getting to understand kind of what he did. Still not really though. He sold these things called Bloomberg terminals that would cost tens of thousands of dollars. And then I eventually used them and understood how they worked and how they related to stocks and so forth. And now, with this book, Getting There, I've already done a few videos on this book alone. There is a chapter on Michael Bloomberg, and it's a short little interview about him. It's only 3 pages long, but it really just breaks down how he is as a person and all these life lessons that I think are very valuable to anyone out there who wants to succeed in the world. Currently, he's worth $35 billion with a B. And again, it's not about the money. These homegrown, down-to-earth lessons on work ethic and everything else, they just correlate with a lot of successful people. And I just want to show you a few. And I mean, there's so many lessons in these 3 pages about him alone. So the first thing is that it's okay if you did poorly in school. I can't tell you how many times people think that they're screwed in life because they got poor grades in school. Michael Bloomberg did. He got C's in school. And there's plenty of people in this book and in many other books who can tell you that they got straight C's, and once they went into the real world, they flourished because the school system is different from the real world, and sometimes the straight A students don't do as well. So that's not always the case, but if you're using that as some type of crutch and saying you can't succeed in life because of it, then you are truly limiting yourself. So I think another thing you can take from this is the fact that he just, had a good time up until he started graduate school. So whatever it was, he says, I don't know if it was because I was lazy or I was too busy chasing girls, but up until my senior year of college, I was a straight C student. So again, it depends on how you can take it. It can mean that, okay, if you screwed up or you had a bit of fun up until the end of your college life, you can still turn things around. Or you can take it as, okay, well, I can work really hard now, and maybe I'll have a few years ahead of this Bloomberg fellow. So don't take this as an excuse not to work hard, but use it as something that's, okay, this guy didn't do as well. That means that if I try real hard and I still don't do as well, it's okay. Here's the next big lesson from this. I think there's so many great lessons from this. The next one is that this man worked for 15 years before he started his business. He worked as a securities salesperson. And what this says is that you don't have to make the excuse that it's too late to start a business. There's plenty of people in this book who start a business while they're very young. There are many others, like Sarah Blakely and Michael Bloomberg, who did not start their business until maybe their late 30s or mid 30s or early 30s. So realize that it's not too late. I mean, the person behind KFC, he started his business at like in his 60s, Colonel Sanders. So it's a great lesson in that you don't use the excuse that, oh, I'm too old, my golden days are over, I have more responsibilities, I cannot start a business. Those may be excuses that are limiting yourself. Having said that, though, there's also this advice that I think there's a bit of truth to as well, which is um, you want to do everything and not limit yourself by age. So don't make the excuse that, oh, I'll do it in another year or another 10 years, because plenty of people also have died very young. Many successful people have died in their 30s. You never know what might happen. You could die tomorrow. And therefore, you cannot put things off too far. And you have to realize that a lot of things that maybe you can do in your 40s, a lot of people, they would have said that, okay, I could have started my business 10 years earlier and gotten everything done. So don't waste time. It's the one thing you won't get back, and it's one of the most valuable things out there. So again, for him, 15 years later, he was fired from his company, and that is when he started his business. He says here that if he had been offered a job at Goldman Sachs after he was fired, he would not have started his company, and thank God for that. But nobody offered him a job. I think this is another great lesson that you see time and time again. The things that you don't have that others have, whether it's not being inherited money or having a broken leg, or not being as popular in school, or not being offered a job, these people, they take it as blessings, or they use that and turn lemons into lemonade, and from that they create something 1,000 times better than if they had been offered that job in the first place. So this was the case with this man, creating this billion-dollar company, having been not offered a job. Had he been offered a job, he may not be who he is now. He probably would still just be this man making a decent living that no one's ever heard of at Goldman Sachs. So, the next awesome lesson that he teaches us is that you don't want to dwell on things in the past. This is very similar to how Warren Buffett thinks. He has a very quick mind, and he never dwells on things. He learns the lesson from whatever mistake he makes, and then he doesn't dwell on it. He doesn't let it consume him. He doesn't let his failures put him down, and he doesn't walk around every day reminiscing about his failures and just letting it take over him. He learns from his failures and he moves on. That's something I need to work on myself. And Mr. Bloomberg does the same thing. He says here, as long as you admit things to yourself, you can deal with them and then move on. I don't lie to myself, but I don't harp on things. And I never ever look back. If your mind starts to wander to past events, the only advice I can give you is don't go. Just stop it. Think about something else. If you divert your attention, your mind won't immediately go to the unpleasant occurrence. And when it eventually does, simply stop thinking about it again. That's how you quit smoking. You don't have to stop for the rest of your life. Just stop for 5 minutes. 5 minutes from now, you probably won't want a cigarette. If you do, force yourself to stop for another 5. Eventually, one of these 5s will end in not wanting a cigarette. And then one day you'll think, I've come so far and I don't want to go back. Okay, that's interesting thing. I don't know if that will actually work for excessively addictive folks, but it's interesting. Yeah, I recommend a book by Tony Robbins if you want to quit something like cigarettes or drugs. I think the book is called it's not Unlimited Power. It's one of the books by Tony Robbins. I forgot. Anyhow, back on track here. Here is another fascinating thing that comes from this book. I highly suggest you check out this book. I got this from the library. It was recently released, and it's just amazing how this woman was able to get all these people to be interviewed from this book. Here he says that he always worked every single day of his life, and he always put in as much effort as he could. He says when he was fired from Solomon, he still had about 2 months left. And he said he made sure he worked 6 days a week from as early in the morning until as late as he could. And he worked 110% and just went all out. So that's the lesson in hard work. There's even more. Here's where we get to the juicy good stuff. Be the first one in and the last one out, especially as a salesperson. If you're there early and stay late, you get a chance to talk to people who would not otherwise take your call. I've heard this in the 4-hour work week as well. It's a great way of getting past gatekeepers if you're someone who calls a lot and is in sales. You build many relationships by being early. You can call the chairman of the board of almost any company early in the morning. If he's a good chairman, he's there. The secretary is not there, so he'll actually answer the phone. The best time to strike is when the gatekeepers aren't there. Here's a very interesting story, just showing you his hustle, and maybe is a great lesson for you to hustle yourself. It's always a bit intimidating hearing these stories because it's like, wow, I don't know if I could do that myself. That's a tough thing to do. At least for me it is. Okay, so this is what he did. He says, every morning I'd arrive at the deli across from Merrill Lynch's headquarters at 6 a.m. and buy coffee with and without milk, and tea with and without milk, plus a few sugars on the side. I go up and roam the halls looking to see if there's anyone sitting there in their office alone, reading a newspaper. I walk in and say, "Hi, I'm Mike Bloomberg. I bought you a cup of coffee. I'd just like to bend your ear." Nobody's going to say, "Get out of here," if you just bought him or her a cup of coffee. When someone would occasionally say, "I don't drink coffee," I would say, "Well, then have tea." So he has all his bases covered, and boom, he gets the door in with these people. A very interesting fellow. This was before he was Mike Bloomberg as he is now. He was just regular Joe Schmo that no one even knew or recognized. So this is a very interesting mindset here. Here's what he says. He says, people have come to me and said, "You can't do everything." That is total bullshit. You certainly can do everything. The people who do some things can do more. If you need to get something done, give it to the most overworked person there in your organization. There's a reason why they're overworked. They get things done. I have an employee named Patty Harris. She should be written about instead of me. She runs my foundation. She runs the city. She has a husband. They have a great marriage. She's got a family. The kids turn out spectacularly. They go on vacations. They ski. They scuba dive. If you go up to her with doubts that something can be accomplished because of this obstacle or that obstacle, she'll look at you, smile, and say, "That's nice. Just do it." And walk away. My parents were role models. Here's another great point. My father was a bookkeeper for a little dairy company. He worked 7 days a week until he checked himself into the hospital to die. At that point, my mother knew that she would have to start driving. She went to the library, checked out a book on driving, took the car out onto our little street, taught herself how to drive. She got a friend to take her to the DMV, took the test, got her license. That was it. She just did it. Man, there are not enough people like that in this world anymore. I've met a lot of people, and especially with our generation, the average person is just lazy. They're just lazy individuals. Average people, you know. Okay, moving on. After running Bloomberg for 20 years, I decided it was time to do something different. People said that the government can't be made to work efficiently and truly serve the people. My response? Bullshit. Tell me something's impossible is like waving a red flag in front of a bull. Might as well go for it. That's what I'm working toward now. Very fascinating mindset. A bit on the extreme side. But there you go. I do think this mindset does flow through a lot of these limiting beliefs that hold people back. Okay, I just want to follow up with this last piece of advice from Michael, and we'll call it a day. As always, leave it a like and hit the subscribe button. So without further ado, here's what he has to say. He says, people want recognition and respect. By the way, I totally agree. If you listen to Anthony Robbins, one of his points is that all humans have 6 essential needs, 4 that are really core before anything else. And one of those needs, if you don't have it, you will find some way of getting it, whether it's through deep emotional, psychological problems or outwardly in some way, shape, or form. And that is the need to be recognized and appreciated and feel special. Whether you are a janitor, someone working the lowest class position in an organization. Okay, so Michael says, people want recognition and respect. When I walk into a building, I always make a point of shaking hands of the security people at the door. If it wasn't for them, the rest of us wouldn't be able to conduct our business. They're just as important as the head of the company. I think the egalitarian concept that American was built around really works. We have grown to have too many distinctions between people. It's important to recognize when credit is due and not be stingy about it. Stingy about giving it. Thanks for watching, guys. That's all I gotta say. Hopefully you like this video, and I will see you in my next video. See ya.